That is the role that Egypt has to resume by remobilizing the resistance culture.
Hence, it can no longer be a client of a foreign power.
Never. I think it should never be a client. It should be friendly, and should resume its role as a guiding force in our foreign policy.
We must, as we wind up the show, we must broaden the picture to the rest of the region.
That's right.
It's clear that if politics is perception, and to a large degree in the Arab world it is, it's breathtaking, the speed of change. So if we've moved 6 weeks from a man setting himself on fire to a country, a regime is being brought down, certainly this is going to move forward into the rest of the Arab world, no?
Well, I mean, this is a regional system, right? People have to remember that these aren't simply states that border each other, that the Arab world is a regional system with common language, common history. So we've already seen this tsunami spread, whether it's a domino effect or not, as we can talk about. I think that some countries are much more susceptible to potential significant change and so on than others. I mean, Yemen clearly and Algeria. I think that it is less likely, although not impossible, that certain countries in the Gulf, Saudi Arabia and so on, will face a similar kind of fate. But those are different political systems with different political structures.
And as I said earlier, now, the countries like Pakistan, a country of 100 and etc., some million, is also now worried because of the similarities. They all suffer, Rashid, from the same ills of corruption, badly run system, autocratic governance, and so on and so forth.
This might have an effect outside the Arab world, but I think the key thing here is that there is an Arab public sphere. The walls that the regimes have erected, and which Arab satellite television and which social media have broken down in some ways, have now been broken politically. People are borrowing methods from one country to another. People are taking inspiration from one country to another. Even if this is, heaven forbid, repressed in Egypt, as it may be for a time. Something has changed now. Everybody understands that this is a region that's linked and that everybody has the same aspirations. People are taking heart from what happened in Tunisia and now from what's happening in Egypt, and I think change is beginning all over this region.
So the virus of democracy has spread?
No question.
Well, on this positive note, gentlemen, thank you for joining Empire, and I will be back with a last thought. I would like to end on a personal note. For those of us who grew up in the Arab world, life has been one long nightmare shaped by political failures, military defeats, social regress, and economic stagnation. But spring has come early this year. Never have I witnessed such widespread vigor and yearning for change. Yes, the situation remains difficult, but remember, the darkest moments of the night come just before dawn. Call me a romantic. I believe in the words of the Tunisian poet Abdelkader Shabi. If people will to live, providence is destined to favorably respond, and night is destined to fold, and the chains are certain to be broken. That's the way it goes. Until next time.
Business Latest is brought to you by Capco in just about everything. Business Latest is brought to you by Capco in just about everything.
Life, misfortunes, isolation, abandonment, poverty are battlefields which have their heroes, obscure heroes, sometimes greater than the illustrious heroes.
he's taken stolen goods and he's now dumping them onto the world without any sort of consideration for consequences.
From people making the news.
If the North will be saved a lot of trouble, I think it is important that they should come together.
To those it affects.
We do accept that there was very bad mistakes made in our banking area.
Behind the headlines.
Most South Koreans are not interested in reunification.
Is the inside story. At this time on Al Jazeera.
Volunteer tourism is booming in Cambodia, with more and more foreigners helping out in the country's orphanages and schools. But with claims of mismanagement and corruption, are these projects doing more harm than good? 101 East at this time on Al Jazeera.
Decoding the stories that shape our views.
Those images catapulted the story back into the headlines.
Everything that I thought would be easy was hard, and everything that I thought would be hard was easy.
From mainstream media to consumer-led advertising.
There are other options.
What's at the front line of global media?
This has been reported worldwide.
With a major media angle to it.
Comparing news and challenging views. The Listening Post, at this time on Al Jazeera.
We are peaceful people. The Egyptian people will be the ones who will make the change.
We are mobilizing tomorrow a mass protest from Tahrir Square.
If we decided to give in now, they will hunt us one by one.
Personal blogs by professional journalists. blogs.aljazeera.net. This is Al Jazeera.
Welcome to the News Hour, live from Doha. I'm Fuli Batibo with Al Jazeera's extended coverage of the crisis in Egypt. Thousands of pro-democracy demonstrators hold a symbolic funeral in Cairo's Liberation Square. New pictures emerged from the most violent night of the demonstrations. Protesters on both sides were the victims of brutal attacks. WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange in court to fight his extradition to Sweden. And the birth of a new nation. Official results from South Sudan's referendum are about to be published. Sudan's president says he'll accept the results. While thousands of protesters are still on the streets of Cairo and other Egyptian cities calling for the end of Hosni Mubarak's reign. These are the live pictures from Liberation Square, Tahrir Square in Cairo. There are also reports of large protests in the country's second largest city, Alexandria. Al Jazeera has a team of correspondents covering these events. We'll talk live to them in just a few minutes. First, a reminder of the latest developments. There's been a symbolic funeral procession in the square for a journalist who was shot by a sniper while covering the protest. The banned opposition Muslim Brotherhood has told Al Jazeera it's reviewing its decision to take part in talks with the government. But Mubarak is still refusing to budge. His first full cabinet meeting in 2 weeks got underway about an hour ago. Well, here's Alan Fisher now with more on the 14th day of the Egyptian uprising.
They came to mourn. The thousands in Cairo's Liberation Square marked the death of a journalist. Ahmed Mahmoud was filming fights between protesters and police on his mobile phone. He was shot in the head. The coffin is empty. This is a symbolic ceremony. The body has not yet been returned to the family, but the feeling of loss is real. Elsewhere, there's a sense of normality returning to Cairo. Shops are opening. Banks are functioning. Traffic is moving.
The past 7-8 days affected the entire country. The banks were closed, the post offices were not open either. When they reopened yesterday, everything was back to normal, but there are still some queues.
The protest in Liberation Square is now moving into its third week. The people here are getting more organised. The numbers stay the same. The space they're allowed to occupy is getting smaller. Slowly, the army is squeezing the area around the square. Protesters say they'll block any attempt to kick them out.
is they slept underneath the tank to force the soldiers not to move.
Those who are thinking that we will get tired of sitting in Tahrir Square, we tell them that we are not leaving. Mubarak should leave Cairo.
For the anti-government camp, the worry is the air is being sucked out of these protests, momentum is being lost. The tanks and soldiers are a reminder of what has gone on over the past days and weeks.